All right, I believe that we are now live broadcasting on YouTube. Yeah, technology.
I love this new fangled technology.
Yeah, dude, it's all the rage for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm gonna post on Facebook because need to make sure I'm technologying well. Yeah. Um, so first things first, since the last time we talked, there was the Vin Diesel rumor dropped.
Yeah, we should definitely talk about that.
What did you think about the Vin Diesel rumor? I guess the biggest thing to me right now is like how much stock do we put in it? I know like I saw at least one website reporting it as though, this is definitely happening, but yeah, I don't know if that's what it really is.
Well, Valiant seemed to be tweeting up a little bit about the Vin Diesel news and posting things about it. So they're there's probably a good chance it could happen. And one thing that's actually really neat about the Vin Diesel news that happened on Monday is that it did kind of take up the big comic book news for the day. Valiant was basically like the big comic book news of the entire day, which is great for them, because they are still a small company. They got to do whatever they can to compete with the Marvel and DCs of the universe, but they were the big story that day, and Vin Diesel's he's a big deal, it's Bloodshot. There was the comicbook.com image that broke of him. He didn't look too bad, he looked a little bit better than Jared Leto, I thought. Vin does do
Probably,
action. He's probably fired a gun before.
yeah.
And you know, um, would he be my top choice? No, I think we've had these conversations prior on the podcast about like people that we think would be great. Um, but if that was who they made to be Bloodshot, I would be okay with it. He's a big time actor and he does action really well. Regardless of what anyone thinks of the Fast and the Furious movies, he does do action pretty good. And I
Pitch
liked him in
Black,
Raid.
man.
Yeah, Pitch Black. So I don't know, man. We'll see if he's Bloodshot. I can't imagine he wouldn't be if they're putting him in the movie, but who knows? What'd you think?
That's kind of my thing is it's just going to come down to acting, and I know nobody thinks Vin Diesel is an actor, but I've seen him act, and I think Pitch Black is a perfect example of him being super intense, being a badass. Um, yeah, he just showed what he's able to do, and I think it's good. It's something that I would want to see. So, would he be my first choice? No, but I'd be fine with it. I would say the same thing though about Jared Leto. I thought that, you know, was he the first guy I would think of? No, but I could see him. I know he's a good enough actor, definitely that he could pull it off. So,
Well, and
you know,
really,
I mean,
Leto or Leto, he would just need to bulk up, and actors can do that pretty easily. That's about my only thought about him.
yeah, he was ripped as the Joker. And so if you put some bulk on top of that, then he'd be good to go.
Yeah,
So, but Vin Diesel's already big. I think he's kind of like a middle point between what a lot of people like, what Jared Leto and what a lot of people have been saying they want to see The Rock as Bloodshot. And I think Vin Diesel kind of occupies a middle ground there. So I think that part of it works.
I just The Rock would be interesting, because like he's just so humongous, but
Yeah.
I feel like he's just got a lot on his plate. I think we'd probably wait a long time for him to get around to doing Valiant's work because he's going to be doing more
Yeah.
of these Fast and Furious movies. He's got Black Adam for DC whenever the hell that happens, and
2020 or something.
tons of other stuff, wrestling appearances, things like that. Who knows when he gets to this if it was him?
Yeah. You definitely need to find somebody that's ready to make it part of their schedule and not going to be too busy doing other things. That would be the main thing. Um,
Yeah.
Was there any other news that came out recently?
Not really. I mean, there was like some sweaters or something like that that Valiant announced that were
Oh,
tying
the
in with
fake
Faith.
thing.
They're pretty sweet if you were like a high school kid. I think like in my life, I couldn't pull the unisex sweater off at all. Um, but if you're into that kind of thing, go give that a look. They had ads for it in all the new books. It's pretty sweet.
Well, I mean, yeah, if that's your thing, then that's cool. And necessarily going to go buy that. I think any other way to get the characters out to people is a positive thing for the company as a whole. And if Faith can kind of lead that charge in certain ways, then I'm all for that, especially since she's an awesome, really positive character who I think is a good representative of what the company is about. So, and if you are into things like Faith, you're going to enjoy her comics. So, that again gives you a good place to go.
Definitely, and I don't know. I mean, I always think sometimes with that stuff, it's like, is that what people are requesting versus like, is that something that someone is just willing to do to partnership with Valiant? Um, it's not a bad thing necessarily, but I always feel like sometimes, like, you'll see what the fans ask for, and it's like, we want action figures. Oh, instead of action figures, we'll give you like these weird blocky things like the Exo Manowar toy and the Bloodshot toy. Hey, we want Legos.
Close.
That's cool. Instead of Legos, though, we'll give you mini mates. And it's like, hey, we want more like face stuff. It's like, cool. Here's the cardigan. So like, I don't know. I mean, like, it's cool, but
Yeah,
like,
but you can also buy like Ottoman cubes, right? Uh canvas wall art.
if you want to like, outfit your house to be a Valiant fan, I mean, you can get all the duvet covers and shower curtains you need, man. It's pretty stocked up. But yeah, I mean, and that's like I think the perfect example of like, do they have that because people have been like writing them and being like, man, my life won't be complete unless I get a shower curtain with Exo Manowar on it. You know,
Yeah, but I have a Batman shower curtain, so I mean, I have genuinely thought about replacing it with a Bloodshot shower curtain. So,
well, I feel
you
like if
know,
anybody would, it would be you though. You are the biggest Bloodshot fan.
it would be me. I would be the guy. I would be the guy. Okay, the other thing that we should talk about is an awesome suggestion that was made in the main Valiant group today, which was the anthology series. Did you see that whole thread?
I did see the post. I never got around to commenting on it. So for those who didn't read that, tell us a little bit about it.
Well, the idea was originally posted by Sean, um, and he was talking about doing, Valiant doing an anthology book so that we're getting um, we're getting characters that aren't in the current active books because we do have, Exo Manowar all the time. We've got Bloodshot all the time. But we're not seeing Rai right now. There are a lot of side characters. We barely ever see Neela. We don't see Ivar. We don't know what's going on with him. Galad doesn't have a book going on right now, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There are thousands of characters in the Valiant universe, so there's plenty of fodder for doing an anthology series, and there are a lot of ways that you could do it. A lot of people had some really good ideas, and obviously you couldn't do all the good ideas, but I think there are enough good ideas there that there's really something to that. Now, you know apparently the idea has already been floated to Dinesh, and he thinks it's too expensive to be realistic, but I think that if it is something that they could do, I think it would be awesome. And yeah, I think that at the end of the, like, getting characters out there and still in the front of your mind is a lot better than letting them just kind of marinate in the background and not really be thinking about them. I would say the Gen Zero characters, but we all know what happened to them.
Well, there's probably something going on with the surviving Gen Zero characters. But back to this idea. I actually think it's a great idea. There's pros and cons to it. The pros to it is that Valiant puts out 6 books a month. Sometimes we get 7. Okay, and generally those books are reserved for the popular, the A tier of Valiant characters: Exo Manowar, Bloodshot, Shadow Man is coming, so we'll throw him in the mix. Quantum and Woody, things like that. We're getting those kind of characters that are always pushed out there. But then, yeah, you're kind of like wondering, like, what's going on with Deathmate? What's going on with Tama right now? I mean, we just saw Tama like a couple months ago, but like, she's a pretty like interesting character. She's probably
Yeah.
constantly up to adventures. There's a lot of characters that are just going to be sitting around until someone can throw them into a storyline or until Valiant decides, hey, we're going to put that character out. You know, I always hear about how they're like the third largest superhero universe. That's what Valiant always says. If you look at the press releases, they're always talking about how big their universe is compared to Marvel and DC. No one else is, even in the running. But then you only see like 10 characters a month. This isn't like Marvel where, there's 50 books out there. You might see a couple hundred different characters, and you're even reusing the villains at a decent rate too. Like usually if there's a character you like that's from the big two, you're gonna see them. Whereas with Valiant, you're just not gonna see these characters very often. Unless they've got their own book, or unless there's some kind of one shot. So I do think that kind of idea is great. It's great however they do it, whether it's stories that Valiant has already purchased and they haven't done anything with those stories yet. Do a quarterly anthology, put those characters out there. Or if, Valiant wanted to be like, hey, you know what, and we're going to accept submissions on it. I know a guy like you who's already been dipping his toe in the water trying to write comics. That's the kind of thing that's like another chance for you to write. Now, however, here's my downside to it. And I just say this as a guy who's done the reviews on these books with you. It seems like whenever Valiant decides to give us a book like the Exo Manowar Annual, Faith 5, whatever book, Bloodshot Reborn Annual, people tend to like the main story. And then if you look on the message boards or on like Facebook, it's like, well, I didn't really care too much for like some of these backup stories. And if that's the kind of quality you're getting, I feel like it's the kind of project that while it's cool and people are adding it to their DCBS order because it's part of it, it might not be the thing that's actually really widely accepted because people don't like the quality of it. But I think it's actually a great idea personally, just because there's so many characters that aren't being used. There's just not much that happens in the Valiant universe within a month. So I do think like that would be cool if Valiant like tried that approach. How whatever the format is, it would be cool.
I think you could do 3 stories, make them 8, 9, 10 pages each, something like that. So there's something there, but they could be short, sweet, and fun. And you could still charge $5 a book. I pay $5, $6 a book even, to get multiple stories, to get multiple characters. I don't know.
Just to
I don't
find
know.
out what's going on with somebody that you haven't seen for a long time.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, like you were talking about with Tama, she's a perfect example. At the beginning of Rapture, we got to see her, running around on these Indiana Jones type adventures, and you could just do those, a series of those for fun. It doesn't have to be long, involved stories with huge character arcs and that, have huge ramifications. This could be a chance for people to kind of play in the sandbox, so to speak, and I don't know. I think that would be cool, and if it's not feasible, it's not going to ever happen, but it would be something as a fan that I would really like to see.
Yeah. One little bit of news that I've seen on a few different websites that are kind of dedicated to this kind of thing, and I'm a big fan of the deluxe editions. I'm when those books come out, I buy them. I got all of them, and Valiant's gonna finally reprint one of them. They're gonna reprint the Quantum and Woody deluxe edition that came out. So it's gonna have different cover art, and the cover price is actually gonna be $49.99 as opposed to the $39.99 of the previous one, since their new printer that they use for these tends to make them a little bit better book. They've been a little bit more expensive. And from what I've read, this is going to be a test run. They're going to see what happens. And part of what it makes me wonder how like why they chose Quantum and Woody is because maybe there's the least amount of demand for it, even though it is an out of print book and there is a bit of a demand. Plus, there's going to be a volume 2 book coming out soon, once material. So it's going to be neat to see like what kind of happens with these books because there is a backlog of these deluxe editions, books like the first Archer and Armstrong deluxe and the first Bloodshot deluxe, and those books go for money. I mean, those things sell for like triple digits. And the Rye hardcover, that thing went out of print so fast, and then a lot of people bought 4001's deluxe, and a lot of those people still don't have Rye. So this could be a good thing. It could be a really good thing for the people that buy the collected editions, just because there are people that buy those that don't buy the monthly books. And I can't necessarily fault them for that. Even though I like being a monthly reader still, I still do buy those hardcovers. But I think it could be pretty interesting this coming year, seeing like what Valiant chooses to do with those books. If they choose to start reprinting them, even if it's just different cover art or whatever. But, there's a lot of those volume 2 books out for a bunch of series that no one can pick up the first one. Shadow Man, Archer and Armstrong, Bloodshot. There's event books like Armor Hunters, Book of Death. Those books are long out of print. Rise out of print. Quantum and Woody's out of print. So, it seems like those books kind of pick up new fans all the time. So I think this is a good thing. Hopefully the Quantum and Woody experiment works in Valiant's favor so that we can get some more of these books put back out there so that people can get them.
Yeah, I completely agree. I don't read as many of the hardcovers. A couple people like yourself and Tor have been really nice and hooked me up with some of those. Otherwise, I would not have anywhere near as many as I have. So, yeah, I don't really buy a lot of them. I do like having hardcovers, but there aren't a lot of things that I feel like I need the hardcovers for, especially since I buy all the monthly books. I'm more likely, if I'm really going to reread something, I'm more likely to buy it in a trade so that I don't have to go back to the single issues all the time. But otherwise, I mean, even if I'm only going to reread something once, I'll just reread it in the single issues. If I feel like something is definitely, so that's what I kind of base it on. What's the rereadability, depending on what I'm going to buy for collections.
Yeah.
Anyway, I don't know if we have anything else before you want to get into some reviews. We do have 3 books that we can talk about.
3 books.
Yeah. So there's a comment on the live chat here about how Quantum and Woody are being pushed really hard right now, and question about there was talk of a TV show, and beyond the thing that was originally said when they announced that the Russo brothers were going to be working on a Quantum and Woody TV show, I haven't heard anything. Have you heard any rumors about it? Any further activity?
Nothing at all. I feel like until Infinity War, which is the big thing they're working on, is like dead and done, I feel like we probably won't hear anything, So like if Valiant really wants those guys attached, they're probably going to have to be really patient just because those guys are just super busy. It's a big deal having them involved. But they are busy making like what's going to probably be like a gigantic movie for this year. But I mean, like it seems like that's kind of been like the nature of the beast with like Valiant's movie news normally. Is that, you hear one thing and then nothing.
Yeah.
Bloodshot is like the only thing where we've actually kind of heard rumblings here and there because we heard the Jared Leto news. And then there was a report a couple weeks ago. I saw it from the Hoodoo guys about, or maybe it was Chris Amundsen, one of those factions, about scouting locations for the Bloodshot movie. And then, Vin Diesel being put into play. So, in fact, I think there's even another report that came out saying that they're really aiming for 2019 now if they get him signed to get the movie out. So, there's been a bit of news on that, but anytime that they've had any news whatsoever about like Quantum and Woody, Dr. Mirage, Shadow Man, Eternal Warrior, all that stuff's usually like in the news for like a day, but there's just not enough of it to really keep it going or nothing else stirring with it. But hopefully we get something soon. I bet the relaunch is gonna do some real good stuff for Valiant. I mean, the first issue was just phenomenal. We both liked it,
Yeah.
and it seems like it's been the kind of book that people who don't even like Quantum and Woody have liked. So, knocking on wood with it. Hopefully, we hear something soon.
Yeah, it would be nice to get Valiant on TV, in the movie theaters, just even if we could get more people reading the comics. Um, but that's probably not going to come until we get more things on TV and in the theaters. So it's kind of the nature of the beast with this thing. But like we said, we do have 3 books to talk about. We're going to go full into spoilers, so that is going to happen. Um, I do. I think the first one we should talk about. I got a physical copy of this one. I'm sure you have that as well. Secret Weapons #0. Boom. Oh, same copy, same cover this time.
That's right. That's
Um,
how we do it.
um, yeah, Heisler is back. We have announced that there's going to be an Owen Zero story as well. Um, I don't know. I thought this issue was good. It was fun. I don't know that it was necessarily anything amazing, but it definitely was good. I like Nikki a lot as a character, so it was fun to get another story of her. I thought the art worked well. It didn't stray too far from Raoul Allen's style in the Secret Weapons book, but it still didn't feel exactly the same. So you could tell it was a different artist, but it still felt like it was connected art wise. And maybe a lot of that was in the coloring because the coloring was pretty similar to how Secret Weapons was done, which I would say is a good thing. But yeah, overall, strong book. It's cool to see this. And yeah, it obviously runs directly into Secret Weapons. So you can tell, this is kind of everything we need to know about her going into it.
Yeah, I love this issue. Um, I thought after I was done with this, I was like, man, I feel like I'm like a Nikki Finch fan reading this book, And the thing was about it was it really worked very well as an origin story. You kind of saw like where she was prior to being activated by Harada and brought in and being sent to the Willows up until the part where like she's running from Rexo. I mean, like I thought this was a great companion piece, if you will, to the overall Secret Weapons miniseries. And there was a couple of moments in it that I thought were really touching, just because she does communicate with birds. A lot of her story in this is, her on the run, her by herself. There's no one there for her. She can't find her parents. The Willows have been emptied. The people that she's been with they're gone. She can't find them. And, there was a panel on one of the pages I thought that was actually kind of touching, just as like a person who's dealt with depression himself, where the bird tells her, like, you can't fly. She's on the ledge of the building, just sitting there, like, weeping, and to me, I was like, it's just a great moment in the book, even though I don't think it's meant to be like a great uplifting moment, but more like a moment where you see someone maybe at their lowest point, but I thought it was handled really well. And, honestly, like, I think at this point I've read like 6 stories by Eric Heisler. I've loved all of them. I mean, this guy is just really firing on all cylinders. And Valiant should just keep this guy around. And if this guy had a bunch of big ideas for how to kind of align the universe or align the psyops or anything like that, I hope they listen, because I just think like he really knows what's going on with this stuff. He's just got a good eye for storytelling. I mean, he's a good storyteller. So for
Yeah.
me, I would give this book about a 4.5. I really liked it a lot. Just really interesting stuff. It's got me way excited for the Owen story we get in a couple months. And I think the Owen story will have Raoul Allen. This one had Adam Polina, who I haven't seen a lot of his work for many, many years. I think the last time I saw him was like on X-Force, like back in the 90s. And yeah, his style definitely does come off like Raoul Allen's. I'm not sure if that was something that Valiant wanted or if that's just maybe the way he's going with his work. But it almost doesn't skip a beat. You can tell it is someone different. But I think if you were to line up all these books and read them, you'd be like, okay, this is like it's all right. It doesn't stick out like a sore thumb.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say about this, and Sean is commenting on the live feed on YouTube and was talking about the art and what he actually reminded me of, and what you were saying, Josh, about the that scene when she was just with the birds on the building and they were telling her, no, don't, you can't fly. Because I think she was about ready to jump, was what was going on there. But a lot of the scenes, even when she's with other people, are presented cinematically, so you're just looking at her face and everyone behind her kind of fades into the background, and it even so it lends this feeling that even when she is around other people she feels extremely alone, and the birds are kind of the only ones that she can really talk to and that actually listen to her. um, so I think that at the end when she's like, I've got nothing left to stick around for, then she finally meets Owen, and I think that's a great moment. And I want to see, and that makes the moment in the Secret Weapons mini when he's thinking about her and conjures a heart balloon even better, because she's obviously looking at him as, a reason to stick around, and he seems to be falling for her as well. So hopefully, there's a good future for them. Because nothing bad ever happens to people who like each other in comics. Uh, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I think it was a good book. Like I said, I was definitely never thinking that it was bad in any way. I would give this probably. I'm definitely coming in lower than you. I would go about a 3.75. I don't. I did like it, but I don't think it was, you know, amazing. It wasn't as good as what we got from the actual Secret Weapons story, in my opinion.
Fair enough.
Um, so then I'm excited to talk about the next book. You got this one, Ninjak versus the Valiant Universe. Yeah, there you go. Nico cover. Um, as you can
Mine's
see
not
on this
signed. I'm
bad
not
boy.
that cool.
Yeah, yeah, you can see on this bad boy. I got that Elliot Rahal signature on there.
Hey,
Got to
real quick
we in,
before we go into it, how was that signing with Elliot Rahal?
Yeah, we had interviewed him when he did Bloodshot's Day Off. So I actually brought my A cover of Bloodshot's Day Off and had him sign that. But yeah, we interviewed him when that issue was coming out, and so I got to, when I met him, I just introduced myself as the guy that had interviewed him. So he thought it was cool to meet. Um, I ended up giving him a copy of the comic that I wrote and self-published. Um, and that was cool. He was totally cool about that. But yeah, just in general, he was a really fun guy to meet and talk to. He was super cool. Yeah, he was just really easy to talk to, just a regular guy, and who writes cool stories and gets to work for Valiant. Um, so yeah, it was fun to talk to him. Of course, I asked, but he doesn't know anything more about the web series than any of us do. So I had to ask. I doubted he knew, and I doubted if he did know, he'd tell me anything. But yeah, he doesn't know anything about it. Hopefully, he will continue working with Valiant, and I did talk to him about coming on the podcast again, and that now that we're trying out this new YouTube live format. Um, we may be able to get him back on, so that would be cool. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. Got a bunch of books signed. Still need to mail them out, but that will happen eventually. Because the post office in my town is open for 3 hours a day, and those 3 hours are while I'm at work, so that's fun.
Is it a very small
Um,
town?
500 people.
Oh wow,
Yeah, yeah. So if you call 500 people small, yes, it's a small town.
that's pretty small.
It's on the small side.
Everybody knows
But
each
yeah,
other's name.
the book, yeah, I mean, we all just want to know exactly what the web series is going to be. This, from its appearance, seems to be essentially a comic adaptation of what the trailer made the web series look like. In which case, I think it's a little bit weird. I was hoping for more of an expansion on the story than an adaptation of the story, but I'm not mad to be getting this story, and I do think it's cool to be able to, even if it ends up being almost exactly what the live show is. I'm glad to have it in two formats because I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah, I had a bit of a hard time getting into it just because I feel like we've been waiting so long for the web series and there's been so much built up with it. And I felt kind of let down by how everything has kind of worked out with it. But with this, like it was a pretty fun story. Um, one other like weird little hang up I had about this is that in a way we're not dealing with like our version of these characters. That they're like their own little universe. Like you look at how Ninjak is and Roku, they're a bit different than they are in the normal Valiant universe. This is almost like an Earth 2 take or something like that. Um, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. With the way this is set up and scripted, you couldn't just take those exact versions and then be like, oh, you know, they're now in this situation. Like it doesn't necessarily work. This is like an out of continuity Elseworlds type thing. But it's really good. Like this issue does a lot more to set things up. So like if you're looking for a lot of like the part where Ninja goes against the Valiant Universe, you won't get to that part just quite yet. You get a lot of him versus Roku and a lot more of the build up. It's a pretty fine issue though. And Joe Bennett, who we had doing the art on the last arc of Robert Venditti's Exo Manowar run, it's a pretty solid looking book. I mean, I think the issues that I had with his art on that don't necessarily bother me here. His art maybe looked a little too 90s style. Here, I don't think it does quite as much. And it's all right. Like, I don't know if he just changed something up or if it's just the setting changed and it didn't bother me as much, but it's an all right looking book. I'm actually not dreading reading it now, even though I did kind of want to wait until the series came out, just because I'd rather kind of take it in from that view, from the actual show and not from the book. But it's all right, man. Like I liked it. I'd probably go about on this one of it, but I do like it, and I think that this issue
What was your score? I missed it.
375.
Okay, okay.
Because I do think that the next issues are going to be the ones that are going to be a lot more fun to see, in that we're going to see Ninjak squaring off against people and seeing how they kind of handle it. Just kind of scripted this thing for Elliot Rahal to like put on paper. I'm really interested to see how they handle it.
Um, for me, I think that the thing that is most exciting to me is that this is a different non-continuity version of these characters. I don't see any real downside to that. To me, that creates, part of the fun of Valiant is that they do sometimes kill important characters. Actions have consequences. Things really happen. Um, so that's something that I like. And having these be out of continuity characters means that whatever happens to them doesn't have to, have an impact on the normal continuity. So Bloodshot could die, and it's not a big deal because his book will still go on. In that continuity, he never died. We can see in this Exo Manowar being completely defeated or something. You know what I mean? Like things that could never happen are now possible. And to me, that opens up so many story possibilities that I'd love to see. So to me, like that's the kind of the exciting thing. Nothing crazy and out of character happened here, that really makes it seem like they're different versions, but it is still obviously they're different, obvious that they're different versions. I don't know that the art was necessarily astounding. I think a lot of Valiant books have some of the highest quality art in the industry, and this was similar to what I would expect a normal professional comic book to look like. And the thing that's funny about that is, we read these books with, what Secret Weapons was, where it was every page was a work of art. And, we get Clayton Crane's art in Exo Manowar and Rai in 4001. That is the same thing. Every page is a work of art. You get Louis LaRosa and Miko Suayan. So many of these artists that are just amazing that when you get a book from Valiant, like this Ninjak versus the Valiant Universe, where it's just what you would expect from a normal professional comic book artist, you're almost like, oh, that artist is nowhere near as good. Well, it might not be the absolute top echelon of comic book art, but it is what I would expect and the quality that you would want from a professional comic book artist, you know. So I don't want to like bash it, but yeah, it isn't that something special necessarily. The colors don't really jump off the page at you. So, yeah, not really something special. I think that it's hard to really judge writing on this, especially not knowing the differences between this and what it's adapting. So, we don't really get to see what Elliot's contribution was. So, that makes it really hard for me to judge. Overall, I think I'm a little bit higher than you. I'm actually a 4 on this, a 4 out of 5. I do think it was good. And I think that it's exciting to see what's going to be coming next. We are getting some comments, and I want to chat about them a little bit. Outright Geekery, which I'm assuming is Henry, said he enjoyed the book. Rebecca, and I know I'm going to mispronounce your last name, so I'm not even going to try. She was surprised that there wasn't something on Comixology, which I would actually agree with that. And said that she doesn't think Ninjak sounds authentically British, which I would agree with. And I don't even know if they're making Ninjak British for this version, which is kind of weird, but at least they're not trying to say that the current Ninjak we know isn't British. So I'm okay with that change because it is a different universe. Although I would honestly prefer they hadn't made that change, but I can live with it.
Well, that makes a little bit of
Sean
sense because I
Hayes.
think Michael Rowe doesn't even sound British in the trailer.
Yeah, I mean, he talks just a tiny bit in the trailer, but he didn't have an accent, did he? I mean,
Not at
yeah.
all.
Yeah, I don't think that he's going to put on an accent. I'm not sure. Maybe he will. I would kind of be surprised. Um, and yeah, and actually, that's what she mentioned that too. Rebecca mentioned that he's not doing a British accent. Um, oh, maybe that was in response to us. Geez, I don't know where I'm reading here. Sean was saying that it's fun because it is out of the universe, I know, and that's kind of what I was saying as well. And hopefully, as he's saying, this the fun that we're having with this comic series will translate to fun on the screen. Um, yeah, but it is. I'm getting used to this whole being able to interact with people, so that'll be interesting to see how that works. But then there's one more book that we can talk about that I actually don't have a physical copy of. Do you have it? Do you have the physical copy of Bloodshot Salvation #5? I have not gotten my
How
physical
did you not
copy.
get one, man? You're at the shop.
Yeah, but I was at a different shop. I was at the shop up in the cities, and I'm already going to be
Oh, okay.
buying at least one copy from my normal shop in Mankato. So I wasn't going to buy another copy up there
That's
because
fair
I know
enough.
I'm getting. Yeah, I'm just not going to buy extra copies. So, and if Elliot had written Bloodshot Salvation #5, I would have bought some copies for him to sign.
Okay.
But um, I think that this is a crazy book right now. Because we kind of know what's coming in the future, that makes everything that's happening now, we look at it in a different light. And I'm really curious to see where things go between now and the future, like especially the end. I know I'm jumping straight to the end of this issue, but at the end of this issue, when we see Ninjak come and like he's going to take Ray to his daughter, all we know about this series is that Ray and his daughter are separated. So that makes me really curious about what's going to come next. This issue reveals that Ray is in 4002 AD. So obviously we are going to get some 4002 in this book. I'm really excited to see more 4002 Bloodshot. I think he is a really awesome character. I love the one shot with him. So, and also the fact that the future story with Punk Mambo, Magic, and the Bloodshot Squad is set in Minnesota really makes me happy as well. So, just all around, this was an amazing issue, and um, the whole thing between uh, Bloodshot and Daddy and how all that went down, I thought was really perfect. And I kind of thought as the confrontation directly between Ray and Daddy was escalating, I thought that Lemire was going to kind of pull back from it, but he didn't. He followed it all the way through to Ray snuffing his life out and kind of like at that moment being like, I should feel all these feelings, but I feel nothing. And like to me, that was a really cool moment. I don't know. And then Rebecca also mentioned that Snarky Ninjak was back, and that's something that I've noticed too. Jeff Lemire writes an amazing Ninjak. Now, I love what Christos Gage is doing so far in Ninja K, but if there could be more Ninjak in Bloodshot, or if we could let Lemire write a Unity book, that would be amazing because I think that him writing Ninjak interacting with other characters is always awesome.
Yeah, the Ninjak thing. I'm glad you brought that up because I do think that too. Where it's like maybe when like Chris Gage is done, Jeff Lemire takes a crack at the character because he does write him awesome, like just like a total like smart ass, rad, badass dude. Um, the future stuff still is like my favorite thing about this book. I'm just so curious about what's going on.
Because it's in
I love.
Minnesota, right?
That's like the second favorite thing about it is that it's in Minnesota. But I mean, like I just think it's such an interesting story. There's so much going on with it, and I want to know. Like, I'm just so curious about 4002. We both like that one shot so much. It's a cool character design. First off, just the way that how Bloodshot is constructed in that time zone, basically just a head, and nanites. So, I'm glad that that is not a concept that got thrown to the side, just used once and that's it. I feel like the way that Bloodshot is constructed in the future, there is so much that can be done with them. There's a lot of potential there to tell a lot of cool stories with that character there. I did think it was kind of weird, though, that some bumpkin pissed on Bloodshot's face in this book, though.
Wait, what?
Like peed on in this book, dude.
What?
Do I need to find it?
Yeah, you do. I don't remember that. I don't think I saw that. Hold on. I'm responding to comments right now, so you look that up. Oh, wow. Wow.
Yep, he got golden showered, just like the president. Um, so yeah, I thought that was kind of a weird touch. Like I was like, man, the bad guys have been ratcheted up like really, really high to be like super bad. Um, and now that I think about it, I really hope that that dude, but I don't think he did. I think Ninjak got him. So, Ray was denied murdering the guy that peed on him. But
What? Wait, what? Oh, the guy that peed on him, he didn't kill. Okay.
But yeah, I mean, the end of this, with how Ray handles Daddy was pretty vicious. I mean, it definitely didn't lack, and I thought the art just made it look really, really well done. LaRosa, another A plus job here. But I probably still like what's going on in the future more. I just think it's weird how the book handles it. Because I think like the present day story is longer, but there's just something about the future that I'm just digging a little bit more.
I wanted more of the present story. I mean, I do really like what's going on in the future timeline, but yeah, I really want I really want the current timeline because I want to know what's going on between Ninjak and Bloodshot and bringing him in there and when
But
he's going to go see his daughter.
It's probably like a real testament to like Lemire's strength though, because I do feel like when I read this book every month, I'm just like, oh, I want to know more about what's going on with both of them. Really, I'm really impatient with it. So I do feel like if it wasn't written as strong, it would just be like, yeah, I'll get to that next issue. Whereas with this, I'm like, I would almost read the previews, which I really try to avoid just because I do like getting out all of it when I get the issue. It's a really good book. I mean, I think that it's the best ongoing that Valiant has right now.
Yeah. And I'm biased, I know, because I'm such a Bloodshot fan, but I'm glad to hear you say that because yeah, it is an amazing book. I said this the last time we reviewed Bloodshot, but I was so nervous when the first issue of Bloodshot Salvation came out. because I just didn't know if it would live up to how I felt about Reborn, and it absolutely is. By this issue, it's right where I mean, it's as good as I could want it to be. Um, and I'm so curious what's coming next. And that's what's so great about it is it is telling a really good, compelling story that has me interested in wanting to follow along. So, yeah. For me, I don't know what I would give this issue. I'm probably gonna go with like I'll go with a 4.5. It's a really, really solid issue. I don't know if I would necessarily say perfect. I mean, I've definitely read better issues of this series, better issues of Bloodshot from Lemire, LaRosa, and Sawayan. So, I mean, I'm not going to be able to give it a 5, but it is a great issue, and I definitely, if anybody who's not reading Bloodshot, you should be.
Definitely, people should be reading it. I'll go just a hair below 4.25. Great issue. Can't wait for issue 6.
Yeah. So we're done with reviews. Um, Something that we don't do a lot, and I wanted to kind of float out there, and I thought that since we're doing this live, um, I've thought about talking about things that aren't Valiant after we're done talking about things that are Valiant. What do you think about adding some non-Valiant content to Get Valiant? Is this
Man,
a
I don't know if
terrible idea?
it's not a terrible idea. I don't know how much of it I really read or whatnot, but
That's the
I'm
thing is we
always
can talk
game for
about
a
anything.
topic.
We can talk about like one random thing. You know what I mean? Like I could bring up a topic sometimes. You could bring up a topic sometimes. I don't know.
I'm
We'll see if
game.
anybody comments on if anybody cares about whether we do that. I don't know. But I've been reading so much Invincible, and I'm pretty sure that's something that you've read. Am I right?
Oh yes, that's okay, man. We could talk about some Invincible for a minute.
Well,
It's
we
it's
can't go
really
too
sad
deep
that you're
into
getting
it.
into it. It's going to end in one more issue.
Yeah. Well, I've got a lot more than one issue left. I just
That's
finished
true.
like volume. I think I'm reading volume 15 right now, and there's like 25 out there.
Something
So
like that.
yeah,
I have the hardcovers of those too. Um, I used to have every issue, and then I actually have just I've been selling them all off
yeah, I bet they're worth
because
money.
they were. Yeah, I sold the first 4, and then I used to have a bound volume that I had made that had the first 25, and I ended up selling it off just because I wasn't really happy with how it was made. But Invincible is awesome. Invincible is the kind of book I think that like it's got a big appeal, because I think it has a lot of like the Silver Age charm of like a Superboy character, but it's got a lot of like the modern day violence and humor that's added to it. It's a really great, and I think it's like way better than Walking Dead. Like I read Walking Dead too, and I just think, man, like Invincible's far better. I mean, but uh, I've had like tons and tons of like Otley artwork because Otley came on, I think, on like issue 6 or 7, and he's a local dude here where I live, and he does a lot of he used to do a lot of shop appearances. He used to have like the first like 100 issues signed, just because like I'd just bring like 40 issues to the shop, and he'd sign all of them. He wouldn't even care, and I always talk with him at shows. He always remembers me, which is kind of a neat thing, just because he is like a local creator and I do travel for shows. So it's good to be friendly with a guy, who's like I think a big deal.
Yeah.
Um, and he's just got such a cool style, and I think for me, honestly, like I like that book a lot because of his art. If it was just Corey Walker doing the art, I think like I would be like, yeah, it's okay. It reads well, but I think Ryan Otley's just a stud artist. I mean, he's just got such a cool style that works very well with that book.
He
With that
definitely brought the
style,
book to a different level when he joined it.
yeah. So I'm glad that that's a book though that you pick up because like I think that Invincible's awesome, and I think that's a book that if you've never read it, pick up the first like trade. It's usually pretty cheap, and I mean I can't imagine that someone would pick up that first book and not kind of be hooked. I know it does happen, but
I will say
me,
that I read that first trade and I was like, this could be all right. it was like the second, third, fourth trade where I was like, okay, yes, this is
Well,
100% awesome.
I guess to be fair, you probably need to get to issue 12. You need to get that first year read in, because after the first trade, I think is where there's the twist. I don't want to talk about it too much if you haven't read it, but from there, I mean, it's just like a bloodbath, between him and
Well, there's people getting ripped apart all the time. There's like he, there's
all.
such like strong characters, and then you'll see like somebody makes them look like a total weakling, and I don't know. Yeah, it's a really crazy book. Um,
It's
but
basically
I
like
don't
the
know.
coolest Superman story you've ever read, basically, though.
Yeah, it's like Superman plus like a lot of other stuff. Like there's a lot of like morality questioning going on, and yeah, it's a pretty deep book actually. And it's weird because, it's such a superhero book, but you don't see like the same focus on um building up the conflicts between the hero and the villain. If you read a Batman or a Superman story, you have that conflict built and built and built and built. Whereas in Invincible, the conflict is more of dealing with being a superhero, whereas the actual superheroing parts of it are just him kind of going off and he beats somebody up and then he has to deal with other things. So I think it's a really interesting approach, but yeah,
Yeah,
that was something that I've been wanting to talk about a little bit because
I, I always
it's
love that the villains in that book are really strong and they're really powerful, and it's not just a case of like outslugging them sometimes. Because a lot of times, like Mark, that's the kid's name who's invincible. Like someone will show up and like just punch his head, like, and his head will just like get smashed, or it's kind of a gruesome book at times, like in some of the
he's
bigger
had his
events.
entrails ripped out a couple times.
The Conquest storyline is one that really stands out to me, where it's just like a lot of violence, a lot of blood. You don't normally see it with like a superhero book, but it's awesome. So I don't know, if you've never read Invincible, go get that first deluxe edition. And I can't imagine you wouldn't be a fan. And plus, not only that, but like Ryan Otley's art, he starts, I think, on like the second trade, and I mean that dude just grows as an artist. I mean, his artwork is rad, and
Yeah, you
I
can
highly
especially see it after he's been on the book for a couple of years. By issues, in the 50s, 60s, into the 70s, his art has gone to a complete like he was already a good artist when he got on the book around issue 7, but by the time, yeah, you get, another few years into it, his art just gets amazing. Definitely something I would recommend. But we don't have to drag this out, too long. I don't
you
know.
know
I
what
think it's a cool. Go
I was gonna
ahead.
say, it might be nice to talk about like maybe like one book every week that's not Valiant.
That's what I'm
Like
saying, man.
it's nice talking about Invincible. And we do totally focus everything on Valiant. And I even feel like that when I write about comics. I do such a focus on Valiant sometimes that I'm just like, I like other stuff too.
Yeah.
Like, why don't I ever talk about it?
Yeah, there's a book that I really want to talk about
So
at some point that's not Valiant, and I think that I'm not sure if you're reading it. We'll talk about it before we talk about it. We'll talk about it when we
okay,
when we talk about it. Um, but yeah, this has been working out all right. I think to do these live videos. Hopefully, people enjoy them. It's nice to interact with people. Sounds like Sean is putting Invincible on his list, and Rebecca's gonna borrow slash steal it from her brother-in-law. So I
that's
support
that's
both of
that
you.
works too. Stealing is just as acceptable, and you don't have to use your own money. So go ahead and steal. I approve of
As
that.
long as you get to read it, that's what I think is the important part.
Barnes and Noble, not your local comic shop. Okay.
True story. But yeah, thank you everybody who tuned in. Thank you everybody who interacted with us, and thank you everybody who's going to watch and listen to this in the future. And hopefully, you can all get involved with some live broadcasts, yo.
Yeah, we're gonna try and do these every week. We love hearing from you guys. So if you guys want to give us some feedback, we have a Twitter page, the Get Valiant. We have our email page, getvaliant at gmail.com. We have the Facebook page. You guys know about it already, Get Valiant. So we're around. If you guys want to interact with us, you got questions, hey, you want to come on and be on this thing, just drop us a line and we'll take it from there. So
Let's do
for
it.
everybody who listens, because it's fun to do this, and I'm glad somebody's listening. That's all I got to say.
Yeah. I would still talk to you anyway.
I'm glad. I'm glad.
That's all you needed to know. Thank you everybody. We'll sign off. I'm Eric Baumgart,
I'm Josh Rathbun.
and I hope you all have a wonderful week. Hopefully we'll see you again in 1 week. And I hope in the meantime you stay valiant.
And read Invincible. Go read some Invincible. Steal it from somewhere.